Welcome back to World of Immersion. Today we are going to be ranking every single launched roller coaster in California. In total, there are 12 different launch coasters spread across the state, and we are going to be ranking them all from worst to best. But before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss another video. Let us know in the comments down below which launch coaster is your favorite, and in general in the world, which is your favorite launch coaster. But with that being said, let's get right into the video. So coming in last place and taking the number 12 spot is Pony Express at Knott's Berry Farm. This is actually a really fun ride. The cart is designed like a saddle, so you're sitting on what feels like a horse, and it's really fun to ride in that position. However, that being said, it still is a kiddie family coaster, so it's not the most thrilling ride. The launch is really fun, and those turns can be a little bit fun, but it's also just a super short ride, and there's not a ton of forces that happen. And in general, I think it's definitely the weakest of the launch coasters in California. Still a fun ride, definitely good for families or for kids, but in general, not the best launch coaster. Now next up, taking the number 11 spot, also at Knott's Berry Farm, we have Montezumas Revenge. Now at the time of this recording, it is still currently closed. It's rumored that they are switching out the launch system. Previously, Montezumas Revenge used a spinning flywheel launch. However, that launch system is very outdated and not used anymore, so it's rumored that they are replacing it with a linear synchronous launch system. But overall, this ride is pretty fun. That loop is pretty forceful, and the launch is also loads of fun. The shuttle system is also fun, where you go on the back spike and then forward on the forward spike. However, in general, just like Pony Express, this ride is short and doesn't do a ton. Besides the loop, there aren't that great forces, and overall, it's kind of just a good, mediocre coaster for Knott's Berry Farm. But with that being said, it is still a fun ride, just definitely there are much better launch coasters in California. Now, taking the number 10 spot, this may or may not surprise some people, but we have Superman Escape from Krypton at Six Flags Magic Mountain. This was the first ever roller coaster to use linear synchronous motors as the launch system, and unfortunately, this ride just doesn't do it for us. Sure, it's 100 miles an hour, and sure, it's 410 feet tall, but it's also forceless, and those restraints really are super restrictive, making it honestly not the most scary ride. I remember when I was much younger and I rode Superman Escape from Krypton for the first time, I was terrified, and then I got on the ride and I was like, oh, that's it? This ride is like 30 seconds long and does not provide any forces. Since it was the first LSM launch, the acceleration is really slow, so you don't get any force on that. And like I said, even though that is a vertical spike, the restraints are super restrictive, whereas if you had lap bars, it would feel like you're flying out of your seat, which would be loads of fun, but because they're super restrictive over the shoulder harnesses, it's really not that great of a ride. But with that being said, let's move on to number 9. Now coming in at number 9, we have Flash Vertical Velocity. This inverted launch coaster located at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom is actually pretty fun. The launch itself is pretty forceful, and the slanted spike that runs over the pathway is also a lot of fun because you get some pretty good hang time on that. The vertical spike is okay. Vertical spikes on coasters with shoulder harnesses aren't the best because it's really, you don't get any of that airtime that you normally get, but the launch is still forceful. The elements are fun. It's a pretty short ride, that's a little bit of a downside, but in general, it's a pretty good ride. But let's move on to the next one. Now coming in at number 8, we have Revenge of the Mummy over at Universal Studios Hollywood. Now I just want to say I love this ride. When I go to Universal Studios, I enjoy this ride a ton. That launch is great in the dark, and also indoor coasters in general are just so much fun. The theming is great, the vibe is amazing, and it is a really good fit for Universal. However, that being said, if we look at Universal Studios Hollywood, the rides don't tend to be that thrilling, and that's sort of the same for the Mummy. For that park, it's pretty thrilling, but if you compare it to other launch coasters, it's definitely on the lower end of thrill. It's also a little bit of a short ride, and that backwards section is not super forceful, you take it pretty slow, but it is still loads of fun. The lap bars are nice, there's actually some pretty good moments of airtime, and also like I said before, launches are amazing in the dark, which is so much fun on the Mummy, but overall it's a really good fit for Universal Studios Hollywood, and it's a relatively good coaster compared to other launch coasters. Now coming in at number 7, we have the Incredicoaster. Now this one may surprise some people because this is a fan favorite for many Disney fans, but for us, we don't really understand the hype. It is a fun coaster, do not get us wrong, but it is not incredible, no pun intended. The first launch is pretty forceful, and into that first hill you can get a little bit of airtime, but beyond that there aren't that many forces that make the ride outstanding. The drop after the LIM lift is pretty fun, but other than that there isn't that much that makes this ride outstanding. The bunny hills after the, 17th mid-course brake run provide literally no airtime. The loop is incredibly rough, one of the roughest loops we've been on, and just in general, it's not outstanding. But like I said, do not get me wrong, this is still a fun roller coaster. We enjoy riding it. That first launch is great, and it fits really well with California Adventure. The theming is beautiful. Making the steel coaster look like a classic wooden coaster is great, and it really goes well with Pixar Pier. But moving on to our next coaster, coming in at number 6, we have Electric Eel over at SeaWorld San Diego. This Premier Ride's clone Skyrocket 2 is pretty fun. The forces are okay. That launch is a lot of fun, especially in the back row, and also of course that heartline roll at the top is a lot of fun. The hang time is great. Now we will say something that we really do not like are Premier Ride's new trains. Their new generation trains are really small and have really painful shin guards that don't leave a ton of room, and then not to mention many of them have comfort collars which are awful. They kill a lot of that like openness and freeness that you feel with lap bars, and that occurs on Electric Eel. But like I said, that launch, still a lot of fun. The hang time is great. The curve drop right after the heartline roll at the top of the ride is a lot of fun. And overall, it's a pretty good ride for SeaWorld San Diego. With that being said, let's move on to number 5. And coming in at number 5, we have Superman Ultimate Flight. This is another Premier Ride Skyrocket 2 model. And take everything we just said about Electric Eel and apply it to this. However, the difference is this one does not have comfort collars, and that makes all the difference. Especially with that heartline roll at the top, it feels like so much fun. We really do like this ride. We only have been able to ride this 1 or 2 times, I can't remember, and it was a while ago because the last time we visited Discovery Kingdom, it was closed all day. But from what we remember, it was a lot of fun, and without those comfort collars, it provides a great ride experience. Now coming in at number 4, this one may surprise many people. We have West Coast Racers. Now, West Coast Racers seems to be a fan favorite for many people. I've seen people rank it in their top 10 coasters in the world, and we just do not get the hype. West Coast Racers is okay. There are some decent moments of airtime and some pretty good hang time, but the launch is really forceless, and the second launch is just weird, and not to mention, it's a little bit rough in some areas, and of course, like I said, those new Premier Ride trains are not great. However, with that being said, it is still a fun ride, and we really do enjoy riding it, especially in the back row. That launch can be a lot of fun, not to mention super long ride with the Mobius loop system, and of course the racing aspect is a lot of fun. And while there isn't a ton of it, the moments of hang time and airtime are actually pretty good on this ride, and of course the theming is also great. Overall, it is still a really good coaster. We just do not get the hype surrounding it. Many people rank this way higher than it should be. Like I said, it's still a good coaster, just not as good as some of the other ones. Now coming at number 3, we have Manta. This one might also surprise a lot of people. This family mock multi-launch is a really tame ride. However, with that being said, size does not matter with this one. That first launch is very forceful, even though it is only 44 miles an hour. And then following that, you have some great moments of airtime. It's incredibly smooth. Mock restraints are some of the best restraints in the world. Now, we will say the second half is definitely lacking. It slows you down right before that second launch, and then you go pretty slow throughout the end. But that first half of the ride is just loads of fun. It is also great for families, but also thrill seekers too, because it's a super airtime-packed ride. Now, taking the number 2 spot in California, we have Full Throttle. This, like Superman Ultimate Flight, is a Premier Ride's new generation coaster that does not have comfort collars. It also contains the largest loop in all of North America, and that loop is phenomenal. The launch straight into that 100+ foot tall loop provides some of the best hang time you can get on a roller coaster in the world. That loop feels like it goes on forever with you just hanging there, and especially because there are no comfort collars, it feels like you're just gonna fly out of your seat. Not to mention you follow that with a quick intense turn into a heartline roll that follows into a corkscrew, and then you enter the backwards launch, followed quickly by the 70-mile-per-hour launch where you go over the loop and you finish off with a vertical drop into the brake run. It is just a phenomenal, outstanding ride. Every single second of it is great. We love this coaster. It is one of our favorite at Six Flags Magic Mountain. The only complaint that we have is the length, and more so not even just the length, but where the brakes are. The brakes are on the actual drop over the loop, which, kills a lot of the airtime you should get with a vertical drop. But still, that is just one little issue that we have. The rest of the ride is phenomenal. If this ride had maybe a couple more elements after the drop, it would honestly be one of the best at Magic Mountain, possibly number 2 or 3. But still, phenomenal ride, one of the best launch coasters in California, but not quite the best. So coming in at number 1, we have Accelerator over at Knott's Berry Farm. At the time of recording this video, Accelerator is still unfortunately closed. There have been some issues with the hydraulic launch system. It was the first ever hydraulic launch built by Intamin. So I believe the park is waiting for some new parts. There's rumors that it might get replaced by an LSM launch, or they're just going to replace the hydraulic launch. We don't really know. But when this ride was open, oh my goodness. 0 to 82 miles an hour in around 2 seconds is a otherworldly experience. That is one of the most intense, let me rephrase that. That is the most intense launch we have been on. And definitely when you compare that to Top Thrill Dragster or King Deca, even though it is much slower, that acceleration is so much more intense. Following that, you go into the incredible top hat and drop down into those overbank curves. Those overbank curves are loads of fun. You're going super fast through all of this. And just overall, Accelerator is such a thrilling and fun experience. Not to mention, it is Intamin. And even though it's pretty old, it is still really smooth. And on top of all of this, Accelerator, fortunately, uses T-bar restraints. Intamin's T-bar restraints are some of my favorite restraints in the entire world. It feels like you are being held in by literally a tiny little bar and that you could fly out at any second. This is personally what also makes Top Thrill Dragster so much fun and what makes Accelerator the best launch coaster in California. Anyway, that's going to do it for our list of ranking every single launch coaster in the state of California. Let us know down in the comments below which parts you agreed with, which parts you didn't agree with. But anyway, that's going to do it for today's video. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe, and we will catch you in the next one.